Oh, hi. There's been a lot of discourse in the BL community lately. Why don't we go talk about it? Welcome back to my channel.
Hi, me here. I just wanted to say that this is a lot of information I'm going to be providing in this video, and there's absolutely no way I'd be able to remember it, so I will be reading from my notes. Just bear with me.
If you've been on Manga Talk, chances are you know about the controversy surrounding readers who consume boys love manga. For those of you who haven't been on Manga Talk or even know about it, allow me to give you a crash course on the community. So, Manga Talk is a niche group on TikTok, manga being the very focus of this group. You can search the hashtag and find various videos ranging from manga shelving, manga hauls, and even cringy videos of people's favorite characters. Think My Hero Academia. However, unless you've done deep dives into this community, chances are you don't know about the discourse involving the BL community. BL, also known as boys love, is a genre of manga and various other medias that follows the love and intimacy shared between boys and men. BL was created as a subgenre of shoujo, a genre of romance targeted towards girls, by a group of female mangakas in the 1970s known as the Year 24 group. There were different terms used to explain the newfound BL genre, such as shonen ai, tambi, jun, and yaoi. While shonen ai was considered more innocent boys' love, yaoi was the opposite, being centered around sex. Yaoi and shonen ai are still terms that are used when discussing BL, but the term yaoi is outdated now, and boys love kind of encapsulates all of the subgenres. So the women of the Year 24 group began creating BL as a genre for women and girls. The reason behind this is largely due to the misogyny that these women and girls faced and still do in society. BL is meant as a way for these individuals to express their sexuality in a society that is largely dominated by the male ego and sexualization of these very readers. I say all this to sort of preface the discourse that I've seen and been a part of on Manga Talk. Many individuals believe that all non male readers, meaning women, girls, and non binary people, shouldn't read BL because they are inherently fetishizing the gay community. I've always found this discourse to be very interesting because many BL consumers are actually within the queer community themselves. I have friends who identify as queer and non binary. I myself identify as queer and non binary, and yet we have all received dox threats, hate comments, and death threats from users just for consuming BL content. The irony is that these are the very people that will call you a fetishizer for reading BL, but then turn right around and read and watch Heartstopper, a male love story written by a white Western person. The creator Alice Osman has straight up condemned the BL genre, the very genre that has helped pave the way for her to be able to write and produce a male story. Her comment regarding the BL genre was found on Tapas and kind of circulated Twitter in 2022. They stated, "Yep, no explicit sex in this comic. The characters are teenagers, so it's just not appropriate, or even if they weren't, I'd have no interest in drawing that. I wouldn't describe this comic as yaoi or even BL. They're genres of comic that tend to fetishize and eroticize queer men in a really bad way. This comic is just a romance between two boys and a coming of age story." This is such a bold statement to make, considering just a few weeks ago it became known that season 3 of Heartstopper will have dark and horny themes to it. And let's just say people on Twitter are not happy about it. I'll post some of the comments that I've seen about this news. A lot of these people have eloquently stated how I and many others feel regarding the comparison of Alice Osman's words versus the direction that Heartstopper is going. And this isn't a critique on the content itself, it's more so just calling out the hypocrisy of someone with a platform as big as hers. Boys Love is not solely sexual, just like it's not only innocent and dark. There are so many different shades to the BL genre, but people like Alice Osman will focus only on the darker aspects of BL as a way to generalize it as fetishization. Take this writer who published an article titled Fujoshi and the Sad Phenomenon of Fetishizing Gay Couples in Anime and Manga. So, Torrance Soto states that there is a clear distinction between reading a story about a gay man and a gay couple. Following a gay man's life without any sexual satisfaction defeats the purpose of yaoi and fujoshi consumerism. The term fujoshi is like the term otaku, which is a person who consumes anime and manga content. Fujoshi is the gendered version of that, signifying female readers and watchers of BL. So, let's analyze the words of Torin Soto. She states that a fujoshi cannot consume BL content without inherently fetishizing it because BL is nothing without its sexual content. BL content, regardless of if it contains sexual content or not, almost always begins with the focus on one male character. Whether his sexuality is specifically stated or not, it follows the male lead as he struggles and or tries to understand his attraction towards men. While some of these stories do incorporate sex, this isn't always the case. BL ranges from stories like Tin Count and Coyote, both with male leads who are struggling with some aspect of their life and then they ultimately find love and sexual companionship in another male, to stories like Given in Our Dining Table. These stories, much like the former, follow male leads who end up falling in love with another male. The only difference between these four titles is that some have sex, some don't, and some imply sex. This is not to say that one genre of BL is better than the other. They all have their purpose. It's essentially just saying read what you want to read. If you don't like the tropes that are in a subgenre of BL, you don't have to read that story. Making such a generalized statement that Fujoshi can't consume content about a gay man's life without sexual content is really harmful rhetoric, not only for the consumers, which paints these readers in such a negative light, but it also takes away from exposing different genders to the struggles of the LGBTQ community. Based on the way that this author opens up her article, it is clear that she has had a potentially negative experience with a BL consumer in the form of a high school friend who coined herself as a Fujoshi. With this information, I'm led to believe that she has generalized a belief that Fujoshi or BL readers as a whole are inherently fetishizing male content. Further in the article, she does make a questionable accusation. Queerbaiting has actually become a common theme in many anime, especially in sports anime such as Haikyuu and Free. They use fan service that lures and keeps female viewership high by presenting a will they won't they scenario between two male characters. The answer is usually that they won't. Using queerbaiting and the well known manga slash anime Haikyuu in the same sentence is such an interesting choice. Haikyuu is a sports anime slash manga following several different teams and players as they navigate their friendships, their relationships, and the wonderful sport of volleyball. The story is written by the infamous Furodate Haruchi, a male mangaka. The story is not queerbaiting at all, in my opinion. Can it even be queerbaiting if a male mangaka is writing about male characters and if he happens to include queerness, then it's for a reason. If anything, in my personal opinion, I feel like Haikyuu is queer coded at best. Many fans have gone on to write fan fiction and fan created mangas called doujinshis about the characters due to their close relationships. So if Torin Soto is using Haikyuu in her article about the fetishization of male content, does that mean she's also insinuating that Haikyuu fetishizes male relationships? And by extension, fan fiction? These are valuable questions that need to be considered when reading articles that are pushing the belief that BL equals fetishization. In order to gather further information about the BL community, I made a JotForm questionnaire that I posted on my social media accounts so I could get feedback from other BL or manga consumers about the BL genre. I asked questions such as age, gender identity, if you read manga or not, your take on fetishization in the BL community. And I also asked, do you think there is a double standard with men reading GL, also known as girls' love, versus women or non binary people reading BL? Almost all that filled out this questionnaire stated yes, there is a double standard. GL, also known as girls' love, is essentially the opposite of BL. It focuses on the romantic and sexual relationship of two girls or women. An online source from 2017 completed a stats analysis on the gender of GL authors. They stated that out of 150 random GL mangakas that they chose, 60.6 of them were female, 13.3 male, and 26 unknown. My reason for providing this information is just to share that GL is predominantly created by women instead of men, essentially saying that GL, like BL, was created by women for women. This is not to say that these genres can't and haven't been created by men as well. There are plenty of male mangakas who have created BLs. Think of Here You Are, a very popular BL manhwa that was created by a male author. While I was doing research to find articles to support my question about the double standard between men, women, and non binary people, I ultimately couldn't really find any articles, which I felt was very telling in itself. The lack of information found regarding male GL readers could mean one of two things: that one, male GL readers don't exist, or two, people just don't care about men reading GL. And I don't think it's the first one because I have seen on Manga Talk men reading GL. This just supports mine and others' beliefs that the male readers can get away with consuming women loving women content without it being considered fetishization. There are countless articles supporting the belief that women and non binary people fetishize the BL community, yet there is little to none regarding men reading GL. Now, this might be controversial, but I do think it's important to note it is a common theme, or has been very much in the past, that men fetishize sapphic people. There are several different subgenres of pornography featuring hot lesbians for the male gaze, which are really harmful and false representations of actual sapphic people. You could almost ask any sapphic person if they've experienced a guy asking them to make out with the girl in front of them, or if they can have a threesome with them and another girl. With such a widely known issue of men fetishizing women or anyone who is assigned female at birth, wouldn't it be more accurate to believe that male GL readers exist and are actually inherently fetishizing the story that they're reading? And that the only reason it's not being discussed is because it's such a generalized thing for women and non binary people to be considered less than a male, to the point that even discussing it being fetishized is useless. So instead, people focus on women and non binary people consuming BL content, calling it fetishization, essentially putting male characters, much like the male population, on a pedestal, which indirectly supports the belief that men, even when they're fictional, deserve more consideration than the living women and non binary people who are consuming BL. Consuming BL can open doors to understanding the queer community, the legalities of being queer in Japan, a country who has yet to legalize same sex marriage, and it can even provide readers a chance to analyze their own gender. While BoysLove isn't always the most accurate depiction of male male relationships, some stories do incorporate the reality of being queer, including topics like homophobia. Take this manga, Escape Journey. Escape Journey follows two male characters through their journey of reconnection when they meet again in college. While this story does contain certain harmful tropes in Volume 1, the men do ultimately end up together, and one character actually ends up experiencing homophobia from his mom when he announces his relationship with the other man. While it is true that not all BL incorporates these themes, more times than not, you will find that the lead character in BL and GL alike end up questioning their sexuality or even talking negatively to themselves at the possibility of being queer. These characters, regardless of if the content has sexual themes or not, can shed light on the difficulties of being queer, whether the reader is LGBTQ or not. This is something that you can't typically find in your heterosexual manga. An anonymous user in the questionnaire that I completed stated that I believe that exploring romance manga of all subgenres is important to increasing our awareness and heightened understanding of diverse relationship dynamics and LGBTQ relationships. This is not to say that the reader will find accurate depictions strictly in manga, but rather that engaging with this media fosters well versed discussions within one's social communities. I think there's a lot of truth to what this user stated, and they articulated it very beautifully. As I mentioned before, BL allows readers to analyze their own gender. Gender identity is a topic that has been discussed widely amongst BL readers, especially those who already identify within the LGBTQ community. In 2020, when manga began circulating heavily on TikTok, the BL to trans pipeline became relevant as many people realized that their interest in BL relied heavily on the gender envy that came from viewing two masculine people together. This realization is harder to discover while reading heterosexual mangas, as gender roles are very specific and heteronormative in these stories. Whereas with BL manga, gender roles are less prevalent because there's already an equalness that can only be found in male male and women loving women stories. Andrea Wood states in her text, Straight Women, Queer Text, that BL manga is not simply queer because the characters are queer, but rather because these stories reject the rigid and binary understanding of gender and sexual identity. In a world where heterosexuality and binary genders are the norm amongst many cultures, the BL genre allows readers to step outside of the box. Straight women, queer women, non binary folks, and men can find solace in the androgynous looks of male characters in this genre, as well as the lack of heteronormative roles that are expected of marginalized communities. Women and non binary people can read these stories and imagine scenarios where they aren't considered lesser than because of their gender. This is especially prevalent in Japan then when BL first began publication, and now. In Wood's text, she states that assessments of the genre have frequently invoked as a key factor in the female reader's interest in these texts due to the patriarchally oppressive environment in which Japanese women live and the ways in which female sexuality in Japanese culture is confined to the reproductive function within the sanctioned space of marriage. So I think it's important to ask yourself, regardless of if you're okay with the BL genre or not, based on the information that is provided, why it is okay for people to consume Western queer content, but not okay for people to consume Eastern queer content such as BL. Both Japanese and American authors began publicly writing queer content into manga and comics in the 1970s. Sunroom Nite, written and illustrated by Keiko Takamiya, was the first published Shonen Ai BL one-shot in the December issue of Besetsu Shoujo Comic in 1970. And Out Comix was the first lesbian comic book published by author Mary Wings in the US in 1973. My reasoning for bringing up these two authors is to show that queer manga and comics began publication around the same time in different parts of the world. Who's to say that Mary Wings wasn't influenced by Keiko Takamiya, and so on and so forth? Moreover, the context of these works are based on the culture and atmosphere that were suited for those times. Eastern queer media, much like Western queer media, has evolved over the years to incorporate themes that are more modern and time appropriate, yet there continues to be this discourse around the BL genre. Much as like the case for many marginalized communities, there will always be a group of people who do fetishize these communities. Those who fetishize certain communities ultimately create this misconception that all individuals who speak of, read, or consume content about a said community are inherently fetishizing it. This applies to the BL community specifically. Regardless of gender, there's always going to be people who can't separate fiction from reality, sexualizing or shipping boys and men in real life regardless of their sexuality. Take this popular manga series, Kiss Him Not Me, which follows a high school girl who is an avid fan of BL and insists that the boys around her date each other instead of pursuing her. It's an exaggerated look at BL fans, some of which may unfortunately be true, but it's not the generalization of BL fans as a whole. There are other stories that approach the genre from a reader's perspective as well, offering a look into why BL is such a popular genre. The manga BL Metamorphosis is just that, where it follows a young woman who is a BL fan and an older woman who comes to love BL later on in her life. While I personally haven't read Kiss Him Not Me, I have read BL Metamorphosis, and I can honestly say that the vibe of the story is very relaxed and much like my interactions with other BL consumers. The reality is that many people can separate fiction from reality. You wouldn't call somebody who reads thriller and serial killer novels a murderer, just like you wouldn't call a queer person who reads heterosexual romance straight. So, why is it okay to call non male BL fans fetishizers? I had several anonymous users submit their thoughts on the topic of women and non binary people consuming BL, and while I can't incorporate all of it into this video, I will share some of the statements that really stuck out to me. There are so many different genres and tropes of BL that resonate with people, allow them to see different perspectives, or just completely escape from reality. There should be no stipulations to consuming fiction, regardless of gender or sexuality. Fiction is just that, it's not real. So long as readers are not projecting fictional scenarios onto people without their consent, they're literally doing no harm. The misinterpretation of fetishization in the BL community is harmful rhetoric that keeps people from consuming certain types of queer media for fear of judgment. It's inherently wrong to gatekeep people from consuming fiction or anything in that matter. BL, just like GL, has a way of introducing people to the queer community, and readers should be able to access those genres guilt free. Lastly, I do want to state that anyone should be able to consume BL and GL content regardless of their gender or sexuality. With that being said, if you've stuck around this long, thank you so much for watching. I really enjoyed doing this analytical dive into the BL discourse. I think it is so rich and can be pulled apart in so many different ways. Again, thank you for watching, and maybe in the future I'll create more videos like this. I really hope you'll check them out. So, okay, bye!